All right, it's 7:36. Senator Blunt joins us from Washington. Good morning, Senator Blunt.
Morning, McGraw. How are you and Kelly this morning?
We are doing well. How's the weather out in the nation's capital?
You know, it's about been like the weather at home. Got really cold for a couple of days. Now it seems to be warming back up. I think it's going to go from about 3 to 60 in 72 hours.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the weather forecast, courtesy of Senator Blunt.
Senator Blunt.
Very good. Senator, let's talk about the budget negotiations. The bill passed. The Senate and the House and the Democrats and Republicans agreed to some spending cuts, and military retirement benefits got cut. You want to restore those cuts?
Well, I do, and I think there's an easy way to do that. If we're going to change military retirement, if we're going to change benefits generally for people that have been hired, I think we need to do that for people as they're hired rather than after they're hired. And so this appears to me to be not the place to go to get that amount of money. And why would the only employees of the federal government who get their benefits changed after they're hired be the military? That doesn't seem right to me. And more important, I think we've got a really good pay for here, which is looking at the earned income tax credit that the administration says is really subject to lots of fraud. And the only thing that Senator Ayotte and I are suggesting you do for earned income tax credit changes is to require that you have a Social Security number for the dependents that you get, that you're able to count for purposes of reimbursement. This according to the administration, this would save about $24 billion over 10 years. So it's a small change that saves a lot of money. And why does it save a lot of money? Apparently, a lot of the dependents that are being turned in on earned income tax credit are kids living out of the country, people who are here both legally and illegally, mostly legally, I think, but they're getting reimbursed for kids who don't live in the United States, and that's not the way the law is written. This is something that should be done whether we're taking care of the military retiree problem or not, and I hope we can get it done. I think there's a level of concern about the military retiree problem that's high enough that I think we get that problem solved one way or another.
Senator, it makes all the sense in the world. When the budget negotiations were going on, I'm sure this was brought up. What was said when it was brought up, and why couldn't this be done the first time around?
Well, it wasn't brought up really until the House had already left town. In fairness to the whole process, the House voted on this. They left town. I'm not sure how aware the House members were when they voted for this. Probably not very aware that this $6 billion, beyond what actually needed to be saved to save the money that the Budget Control Act requires us to save, and I'm a big supporter of the Budget Control Act, but I don't think House members knew this was there. On our side, Senator Levin, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and others promised that this would be fixed, that this would be addressed later. That was good enough for some people. It wasn't good enough for me, and I didn't vote for the budget decision because this was in it and unfixed. But I think we're going to get it fixed, and I do think having an agreement on a spending number is a good thing. It may allow us for the first time in 8 years to let the appropriations process work the way it should. That's largely now up to Harry Reid, but Democrats and Republicans, including me, are going to the majority leader and saying, let's bring these bills to the floor, let's debate the country's priorities, and for the first time, Harry, since you've been the majority leader, let's do this the right way and see what happens when you actually just do the people's business the way it's supposed to be done.
That's Senator Roy Blunt. Senator, while we still have you, a story here that we've been following quite a bit. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but we kind of think it's a big story, and that is the Bridgeton Landfill is smoldering next to a nuclear waste dump. EPA is going to look at it again. They've said that their nuclear waste is now in places they never thought it was. Some people are alleging that if not now, at some point, this nuclear waste is going to seep into the groundwater. People are waiting for the EPA to decide to do something. What are your thoughts as you watch this story?
Well, I put a lot of pressure on the EPA to look at this again. We've found similar cases in other states where the government has come back and addressed a problem that they didn't think initially was a problem. My staff is there. I'm there. We're paying attention to this, and one way or another, hope this is resolved, and I'm going to insist that this be resolved in a way that protects the neighbors and the neighborhood. And if at some point it can be absolutely proven that a hugely expensive solution isn't necessary to protect the groundwater, we're going to look at that. But if it is necessary to do what needs to be done so that citizens' property and livelihood and life is protected, I'm going to continue to insist that happens.
The people of Bridgeton and the people we've spoken to want that nuclear waste removed. Are you in favor of that step yet?
Well, let's see what is absolutely required. I mean, the people that bought property in Bridgeton bought property in most cases after this situation was known and was there. Now, whether they knew it or not is different than whether they could have known it or not. And the taxpayers of America don't necessarily have to come in and make an investment right for people in Bridgeton. But if this is going to impact groundwater, if it's going to have an impact on health and safety, I'm going to insist the federal government take care of it. If all that we're talking about here is enhancing a property value beyond what your value was when you bought the property, that's a different discussion. But let's look at what the facts are. And if the facts are that people's health and life is impacted by something that's happened here that they had no reason to know, or even if they did know about it, I'm going to insist that be dealt with by the responsible parties and the government. But this is not something that nobody knew was there until 2 days ago. It's been there a long time, and let's see what the facts are. But I'm going to insist that people's health and life be protected by those who are responsible. Any
idea how long it's going to take the EPA? It says now that they're going to reopen some more tests and some of the things that they've said recently, like there is nuclear waste on places where they didn't know there was nuclear waste in that sort of trough area where they're sort of trying to keep the fire away from the nuclear waste. Any idea when the EPA is going to come up with some final results?
Well, I'm not a great friend of the EPA, and I held the EPA director's nomination back for about 4 months, trying to get them to be more realistic about their rules and regulations. But this is a good chance for the EPA and I to be on the same side. And now that they've decided to do this, they need to do this sooner rather than later, and we need to be sure that there's a thorough appreciation here for people's health who live in this area and the future of what can happen. And if they can't absolutely, with certainty, say no, this is controlled and controllable in a slightly modified current environment, then we're going to have to go in and do something bigger than that.
That's Senator Roy Blunt giving us the latest from Washington as well as the weather forecast. Senator, be safe, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Great to talk to you. See you soon. Bye.
That's Senator Roy Blunt here on the Big 550 KTRS.